Hello, hello. Welcome back to Trade Triangle. It's me and Kaye once again. How you doing, Kaye?
I'm doing great, Sean. How are you doing, man? Welcome back.
Yeah, it's still very warm here in the UK, so you can see a little bit more sweat on the forehead here. So, is it quite warm over there where you are, or not so much?
It's we had some storm in the last week and a half,
Oh,
so it's been raining crazy. Today also it's been like on and off kind of rain, but it's humid.
yeah. So we've had a couple of weeks off of the market, and it has been very eventful one, which I'm sure we're going to get into at some point throughout the stream. But just a quick reminder: this is not financial advice. It's just a couple of guys talking on the internet about stocks and looking at charts and taking your requests, which you can do so at the individual after the individual takes of our stocks. And you can see that on the screen now. So go ahead and stick your requests in the comments. We would love to do that. And Kay's got to write them down because he always writes them down, don't you?
I do absolutely. Just
Awesome.
send it along.
Without further ado, should we jump into the first chart?
Welcome, Sebastian.
Sebastian, here he is. Good, good. Hang on, what am I doing? It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah, you
Frosty.
forgot how to share your screen.
Yeah, that's what
Huh?
happens. Too much time off.
Yeah, that's the problem. You take time off, you forget how to,
Yeah, I
deal
can't
with it.
function properly. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Right, awesome. Last week's performance. Wow. I mean, what a week. It was. I mean, the week before was pretty good too. Obviously, we went on last Sunday, but the market basically rebounded to where it was a couple of weeks ago to where we are now, if that makes sense, which we'll see in the charts in a second. But just this week alone, Nvidia up 18%, Apple up 6.5%, Microsoft 3.5%, Google only 2%. We'll talk about that a bit later on, won't we, Kay?
Yep.
Amazon up 6%, AVGO up 15%, even AMD, which is not always the most favourite stock at the moment, is up 10%. So a massive, massive week in the stock market. Got any immediate thoughts looking at this?
No, I think once we go to the next chart, you'll see the put to call ratio and the change in QQQ is the reason. And even Tesla, we haven't talked about Tesla lately, but hey, it was up almost 10%.
I know, and we're going to talk about that again today as well. So that'll be interesting to see what our thoughts are regarding that chart. So it's all green. I like it when it's green because everyone's happy, everyone's talking about everything going to the moon. But there is a little bit of hesitancy behind that, and we'll see that in the next slide. And we can see we're still sitting in the fear. It's hard to believe that, isn't it? With the 2 weeks we've had, I'll just skip forward just a couple. This is the last 2 weeks, just straight up, and we're sitting in fear. I mean, what?
So if you think about it, right? We missed last week, but the week prior when we were presenting, put to call ratio was zero point 0.8 and it just dropped 0.78. So it's only dropped 0.02. So there is still that uncertainty in the market. Still bullish because it's 0.78 versus 1 point something. But you can see that and because the wicks went crazy to 65 or something like that during one of those days, and it
Yeah.
has really pulled back at 14.8. By the way, generally if you like to trade, um, trading strategy for wicks is you can buy a call once wicks goes down below 13, maybe 3-4 months out in advance, so that you can play for the upside potential. So we can talk about that more when we get to the chart and section, but that's another trading strategy that you can apply as you go through trading. But yeah, if you look at SPY QQQ, every index had a strong performance, 3+%. And then of course we do have two key events coming up. Thanks for writing that down. FOMC meeting minutes that come out on 8/21, and then of course Jerome Powell talks on in Jackson Hole, Florida, on 8/23. So I think the whole messaging over here would be, hey, it's getting better, inflation is under control, unemployment has not risen too crazy, things are looking good. Are we on for a rate cut in September? That's basically the message.
Yeah, and I think the percentage is quite high for a rate cut, isn't it? So
Yeah, yeah.
we'll see that, I think, coming. I don't know when the date would be for that, but probably a couple of weeks into the month. So it'll be interesting to see what Jerome Powell has to say around that as well. On Friday,
September
he's
18th.
talking September 18th. Okay.
Yeah. So
Uh,
September 18th, we expect a rate cut of 25 basis points or 0.25% is about 75% voting versus maybe a 0.5% or 500 basis points is about 25. So about 75% people are expecting that we'll have about a 25%, 0.25% rate cut.
Fair enough. And I think just a bit of a warning for all the investors slash traders out there. Obviously, Wednesday you've got the minutes, as Kaye said, and obviously Friday, Thursday and Friday, Jackson Hole event. But obviously, Fed Powell speaks on the Friday. Just be careful of the volatility because that will be a choppy through days, a few days. It could be up 2%, down 2%, all that kind of stuff. So, nothing normal. So yeah, but we'll move on to the next slide. Obviously, there's lots going on in the market, but we've still got earnings. Still, earnings are still kind of kicking about. Not the biggest week of earnings. I think we've gone through all the main kind of mega caps and the kind of even the slightly medium caps as well. So we're going through a few on the screen here. The two that kind of point out for me personally is Xpeng down here. It's obviously related to Neo, and obviously Zika as well. I'm guessing you're looking at Target, Macy's. What are you looking at, Kay?
So I'm also looking at Palo Alto on Monday. So if you are
Yeah.
into CrowdStrike and cybersecurity, Palo Alto is the biggest cybersecurity company. That, and then of course Snowflake and Zoom are on the SaaS side, which be paying a lot of attention. And from Target Macy's standpoint, it's more to see the health of the consumer and see how their spending has been in the last quarter. But yeah, it's not the biggest week. I think the biggest week will be the following week, which I guess everybody is waiting. Nvidia will report its earning, and a video is going to drop on my channel for Nvidia pre-earnings. Should you invest or should you wait? It'll be out tomorrow, I believe. Tomorrow, yeah, tomorrow evening. So yeah, definitely make sure you subscribe to Sean and my channel as well.
Yeah, and obviously links, if you are watching on the YouTube side of things, links are in the description for both of our channels. So go ahead and check out Kay's NVIDIA channel, video tomorrow. Just a quick mention, obviously, I don't think we mentioned Wolf again, obviously, for letting us use the platform. We do really appreciate it. Wolf's obviously a great person in the whole kind of community, massive influence for many, for the positive side, of course. So yeah, thank you once again, Wolf, for letting us use it. Let's look on to the first chart. So, SPY. This is the daily chart. So, and we can see basically the Black Mondays everyone was calling it on the day. It's not technically a Black Monday now. That was this drop.
Before we begin on that, I think that was just an over exaggeration
Oh yeah,
by
100%.
by people, by media. I don't know what you mean by Black Monday. It was a slight pullback of 5%. That's it. It didn't
On
even
that
crash.
one day, though, wasn't it? On that one
Yeah,
day.
yeah, but so when you are up 16, 17, 20% for the entire year, and then you pull back 3, 4, 4% a day, it's like everything is falling down. I think that is that what ends up happening is, see, if you and I and a lot of in the community members who are trading every day, or you're looking at charts, you can have that perspective. But for the common people, this is the problem. Like, when the media paints a picture like everything is falling down around you, you just zoom out and see actually you were still up. Even if it was a 5% day pullback day, you were still up handsomely 10 plus percent. All right,
Yeah.
rant over, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was the nature of the fall, isn't it? I mean, it's literally 2 days,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's gone down essentially almost 8 or 9% in total. And obviously, that's enough to panic investors, and that's fair enough. But the way we've rebounded is absolutely incredible. Not just rebounding back up to these moving averages, but pushing through the moving averages as well. So looking forward on kind of where we go, I think healthily wise, coming back down to that kind of 545 level would be good. This kind of line here, that's just
Mhm.
basically a gap fill from Wednesday. Yeah. So that would be interesting to see if we can fill that maybe in early trading, maybe looking into the kind of the Fed minutes slash Jackson Hole as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if we just kind of play between these two lines for a bit, just calm down the volatility. Obviously, like you mentioned earlier, the VIX went up to 65, back down to 14 or whatever it is. So that would be interesting to see if that kind of levels out a little bit as well. Um, just in the next couple of weeks, obviously not this week, but yeah, I think a little bit of stability would be good for the markets because you can see it's been very choppy just in the last 3, 4 weeks. I don't know if you have anything to add on the chart side of things, Kay.
I think from a chart standpoint, I definitely think that gap fill needs to fill out maybe this week. If not this week, probably next week, before we can have a leg up. And also just looking from the sentiment standpoint on the put to call ratio, we closed the week on 816 at 3.09 on the put to call, which is highly bearish. But next week we are closing the week with 2.25, which is very bullish from a SPY standpoint. So there's a lot more bullishness going in, and the implied volatility is not that high. It's only like 10-11% compared to some of the previous weeks that what we have seen. The implied volatility has really gone up. So I would definitely love to see that little gap fill before we can make the move up, because what tends to happen if we see a continuous move up over there, then again that gap fill is still there, and then you can see a solid pullback to fill that gap, and that ends up happening many times.
Yeah, and if you continue to go up as well, there's always that kind of fear of creating more gaps. And the more gaps you create, it's the more tempting for the market to kind of fill them. I know it sounds a bit silly, but it's people are going to be looking out for that and then pushing for it, etc. So another thing to look out for. Right. Before we move on to the QQQ, make sure you stick in your audience requests down in the comments. We've got one so far. We need a little bit more. If you're interested in a particular stock, get our perspectives on it. That's why we're here. We're here to kind of give our thoughts, I guess, thoughts and opinions on each stock. We love to do that, and we actually get ideas from those stocks as well. We've had a few of them in the past, haven't we, Kaye?
Oh, we had a lot. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
That's
Let's move on to the Qs then. This one's looking a bit more dramatic. You can see before we spoke about multiple gaps. We've got a couple here on the downside, but this one looks a little bit more cautious, a bit more resistance kind of ahead. Obviously, we did bounce off of this in a very dramatic fashion, as we spoke about related to the SPY in 2 days. So this 50 moving average is going to be a bit of a point of contention for me.
Mhm.
We did see a little bit of a fallback on Friday, but not a huge one. I just wonder if we, continue to find that a little bit tricky to get through, and maybe just actually promoting that gap fill, at least the first gap fill for the Qs, which is 465. Which is only a couple of percent. It's nothing too dramatic. We can easily get that in a day or two. So yeah, I think maybe coming down to fill that gap and then making a move higher, that would be the ideal scenario, at least for me. You've obviously got all these volume bars as well here, so you can see the volume is kind of ticking around that area. If we don't, of course, and we do just blast straight through, then I'm looking at this gap fill at the top here at 493. That's a very healthy gap to kind of fill out. Yeah, that's kind of what I see on this chart. What are you thinking, Kay?
I think similar to what we talked about the gap fill, I think this week most of the conversation will be focused on the FOMC minutes and the Jackson Hole, but QQQ really will play out next week. As we
Mm.
wait Nvidia's earnings.
Yeah, so that'd be interesting to see. Thank you for all these suggestions, not suggestions, the tickers, Sebastian. I'm getting all my words mixed up today. I've had too much time off. I know we said it earlier, but it's been too long. I
All right,
basically just do this daily.
don't worry. I'm just making sure I have all the ticker
Yeah,
requests, and we'll
yeah.
get to it as we after the charts.
And we've got one for hymns as well, which is I like hymns. I've got that one currently in the portfolio, so I'll be looking forward to seeing that one. Thank you, G Fiona. God, got that completely wrong, I think. Anyway, next chart. My first chart of the day is Tesla. We can see it's been a bit choppy as well, along with the market. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I just want to basically point out a couple of gap fills. Got one all the way down here, which is 148. You know, it could happen. Tesla is a volatile stock, and of course, it's still in line with this wedge, which goes way back now. So that could be a good kind of target point if you were looking to go short on Tesla. But also on the positive side of things, breaking this trend line, actually holding it properly would be a great sign for Tesla. I know there was various news events, and obviously we did have earnings around that time as well, which didn't help too much. But now we might have a little bit more stability if we can break that. Again, as I said, maybe retest it and move up to a kind of 246 level. That will then fill that gap just here with the dotted line. Yeah, I mean, the point that it's now, I don't think it's a good entry point personally. Just because you've got a bit of indecision around these kind of moving averages, it's still below the trend line as well. So it's just a not ideal, buy point. Would you agree with that, Kay?
Yeah, I think so as well. And the 148 gap that we have, I don't know if we will fill that gap, soon. We could wait for the next maybe pullback on broad index, and then probably we'll see those lows. But I think for Tesla, it will be the October event that most likely will come into conversation. A lot more people will talk about. I think in September, as we get closer to that date, that could propel the stock higher and maybe even break the trend line if it doesn't break before the hype that big builds up. And I think one other news on Tesla is the Um, we know that Elon Musk talked about not releasing Model Y refresh, which is the Juniper, in 2024. But again, that could change because end of the day, there could be there. I don't know. I don't have the data, but there are a lot of people who are already waiting for it because what they have seen with a Model 3 refresh, you could see a similar trend for Model Y refresh as well. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think as the event gets closer, we will see more bullishness in Tesla as they await the robo taxi event.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of trading days in between now and October, isn't there? So
Oh
still
yeah.
plenty of opportunity to catch on the volatility for Tesla. Nice one. Right. Let's move on to my next stock, and I've got PayPal next up. Um, Again, I'm trying to simplify charts just kind of really objectively. This is actually the weekly chart for PayPal. You can see it's been mostly kind of dribbling down, I guess. A little bit volatile at times, of course, but we're just reaching this resistance point, which has been a resistance point for quite some time. Well, this whole year, actually, this whole year of 2024. One, two, three, kind of maybe four, five. We're kind of on the sixth test now. And I think if we break through this kind of 68 level, because that's where we are now, if we break through the 68 level, I'm looking basically for a trade up to kind of a 76. And you might think, oh, why didn't you get in here, Sean? And that would have been a very good question. Probably, probably should have done that. But obviously, that wasn't on my radar at that point. So, yeah, we missed that one. But of course, there was also more opportunities to be taken in this stock, at least in my opinion, of course. So coming up through $68, coming back down, retesting it, and making that move to 76. This would be a swing trade for me, not a day trade, of course, because this is the weekly chart. They had very good earnings just previously. They went up 8% on the day. The company's moving in the right direction. New CEO is doing really well in terms of turning the company into more of a futuristic stock. So it was a bit stale at first. Kaye might have some thoughts on that in just a second. But yeah, I think that's actually probably it. What are your thoughts, Kay?
So it's not on your visible on your chart, but I was looking at the chart for PayPal on my side, and there is actually a gap from 72.34 going all the way to 70.70. So there is about like a $2 gap that we could see it filling up, but on the other side, there the volume shelf is not there. So we
Right.
could see a flash in the pan kind of a thing. It fills up the gap if you're doing day trading. But I don't see enough volume yet to be, comfortable putting an entry over here because again, risk to reward ratio is not much. And then if you're looking at from a volume standpoint, most of your volume is sitting around the big volume shelf is right around the, let me see, where is it? It's in this range of 64 and 56. That's where the bulk of the volume sits.
Yeah, and that you can see that basically on the screen now because where the stock
Yeah.
is trading within this area, obviously the biggest volume will be there. But yeah, it's interesting to say there's a big gap to kind of 72. So maybe we'll see maybe a little bit of reversal from 72 back down to 68, and maybe that's where you get your bounce, perhaps. So just keep an eye out for that. Obviously, do your own research and kind of analysis into these stocks. We're just here to kind of point them out and just give our thoughts on each of them. That's it for me. You can find me on X. I post daily trading insights, or daily-ish. I've got. I do like posting a chart or two, and obviously some bits on Neo. You can catch me on YouTube as well. I'll be going live on Wednesday, just before market open. Because obviously I'm in the UK. It's tricky to get kind of in the kind of main times for the market, of course. But I will be going live on Wednesdays, have a look at some charts, look at some opportunities ahead of the big kind of volatile moves before the end of the week. And I will be doing an eToro portfolio update because I missed it in the month of July. It'd be interesting to see what's happened in the last couple of months for my eToro portfolio. So do stick around and have a look for that. And Substack, I'm not doing anything, so just don't bother with that. Okay, what you got?
The first one is Google. So for Google, personally, for me, I think I have added the gap that we see down there, and if you look at the trend line, we continue to see this as more of a lower highs,
Mm.
and I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, 200 days is definitely going to be a good support level for Google, which is, you can see is the purple line 154.40. But it's getting closer to that level of 200-day moving average. So if we see some kind of a break through that trend line, I wouldn't be surprised if we can do that gap fill that you see in the yellow highlight. So for me personally, I think Google is a long-term investment for me, and I'll be taking advantage of getting into it. Again, I don't day trade. I do options trading. I do scalping and swing trading. So this is something more of a swing trade, if and investing as well. So if it breaks the 200-day moving average, I'll be looking for that gap fill before making an entry into the stock.
It's interesting. I think with Google, it's a bit frustrating because you can see things like Amazon and Apple doing really well in the last couple of weeks, especially with obviously the kind of flash crash we had on that Monday. Everything's rebounded nicely, but Google just hasn't really moved, hasn't really responded.
Yeah.
And I do wonder if it's something to do with obviously they've got like a lawsuit going on or something like that.
I
Um,
think I think you're right. Lawsuit plus coupled with some embarrassments that they have had since the AI, right? So they were supposed to be the first company coming into AI. OpenAI beat them to it. Then they came out with a product which was not well baked. So that was like 2 years ago, right? And then somehow since then Google has just not been on their top game. But these are the opportunities that present to you to add it. If you think that Google is just going to walk out of the door and not be a part of this revolution AI, then I think you're highly sorely mistaken.
yeah,
I think these are opportunities. This is exactly an opportunity, because maybe 2 years from now you would say, I want to buy Google at 162.96.
they'll be there in some capacity, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they're Google, so it'd be weird to not see them around. But yeah, we'll see what happens in terms of, I think, going back to the chart side of things, I would like to see that trend line break. I mean, you've got the 20 moving average, the yellow line kind of coming in line with that as well. So a simple trade in my head would be to break that trend line in the upwards fashion and go up to kind of 175. It's not the biggest percentage, of course, but a trade is a trade.
Yeah.
And obviously, like you said, if you break the 200 moving average, then that's a different story. And we'll be looking towards that kind of yellow shaded area down to kind of 145, 144 area.
Yeah.
That's where I'll be picking up some shares for the long term. So thank
Yeah.
you for bringing this one up, Kay. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. We've got
uh,
Meta up.
yes, next up is Meta. And the reason we don't a lot of people don't talk about Meta, but Meta, I mean, if you're into options trading, Meta gives you very, very good premiums. But keeping that aside, even for swing trading, and right now, Meta is trading nicely in this range. And if you are into options trading, it's perfect for running a wheel strategy here, because you can always look for that pullback. Now, I want to get your opinion. I think there's a double top coming up on this one. And I wouldn't be surprised if we go back and retest that 496 level on Meta. And that is where you see the biggest volume shelf coming in as well. Not the biggest one, but a pretty big volume shelf coming in. And I wouldn't be surprised if Meta kind of does barcoding in this range of 496 to 540 or something like that. And this presents a very good opportunity for trading, whether you're doing day trading, swing trading, scalping. You can definitely take advantage of this range bound movement. So it looked very interesting to me. I am in a current trade for Meta, and just wanted to bring it up to see your opinion and maybe a couple trade ideas for the folks.
Yeah, well, I like this one on two different occasions for a breakout trade. I mean, even now, if it was to break above 543, maybe come back down and retest it and then bounce up from that way, I'd be okay with that, even after this extended move, because this essentially is just a reversion to the mean of what's happened in the last 2 weeks. So if you take the last 2 weeks out of trading completely, we are at the same level for a lot of stocks, especially the big boys. But more healthily, I would like to see, as you mentioned, a kind of retracement back down to 496, a very healthy bounce around these levels because you've got 3 points of confluence there. You could even start the trade there, in my opinion. But just because of that word confluence, we've got 3 points of it. It just gives a little bit of an edge, I guess, for that particular trade. And then I would like to see a return back to obviously 540-ish and then break through that way. And that would be even better. You could actually add after that, given where the stock market is, etc., what the news is like. So always have that in kind of consideration. So yeah, the two different ways of doing it. Obviously, up there straight away, or maybe a retracement back down to 496, and then go up there and break 543. So there's two ways I've been looking at that. and I've written this down on my shortlist. So thank you very much, Kaye. I don't normally trade Meta, and I don't normally look at it. It's just one of those stocks I just don't really have in my mind. It always escapes me. But maybe it's time. Maybe it's time.
Yeah, so that's Meta for us right there. I think we got a couple of comments here. So Ryan
Oh
says
yeah,
SEC is discussing dismantling Google based on their monopolistic antitrust issue. Exactly, Ryan. So I think that is also playing a role on Google's price. And there is always also discussion among analysts that before they come up with a verdict on breaking up, Google might decide to break up their own some businesses. I don't know how it's going to play out. Even if SEC comes out, there's probably gonna they're gonna litigate it for a couple of years before it actually happens. But from a stock standpoint, I think we could see some weaknesses, and as we pointed out, you could pull if it breaks the 200 moving average, you have an opportunity to add from an investing and even trading standpoint.
yeah.
Okay, cool. And then we have a couple more requests, so let me just add them. Yeah, so you can find me on X, InvestK. I do post it. I have just been very busy lately, so I haven't posted much. But you can follow me there for trade. I place my trades and I'll update the audience over there. And then on InvestK on YouTube, I am going to be posting out pre-earnings for Nvidia. So if you are interested in Nvidia earnings, definitely track me there. I haven't posted much on Substack, but you can track me there as well.
Awesome, great stuff. We are getting into the audience request. Sorry, I zoned out for a bit there. Probably not the most professional thing.
You have taken too much vacation. That's what happens.
Yeah, it's easily done. All right, let's get
So
this sorted.
Shaheen, Google also pressured cause you can now search for stuff on WhatsApp, ChatGPT, Perplexity. So it will be interesting to see how it all plays out. Yeah, exactly, Shaheen. You're absolutely right. I think we may see a time, we may see this period where there'll be just a lot of players, and eventually there will be consolidation. Um, it- Google is synonymous to search, so it's not going to be as easy as we think that. They'll just leave the room. Um, but yeah, absolutely, it's going to be interesting on how this whole thing shapes up.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if somebody goes and buys per let me see, I'm not getting the word, perplexity.
You've
Yes.
been calling out me too much.
Yeah,
Yeah. Perplexity is great, by the way. It's
it
really
is,
good.
it is. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if one of those Max 7s actually buys them out.
Yeah. No, maybe they will. I think. Why not? Right. Let's have a look. What we got?
All
This
right,
is just a QQQ. What have we got first?
the first one is IDCC.
IDCC. Sebastian has commented Greece. Yeah, it's
Oh,
good. Thank you.
nice,
Very good.
Sebastian.
I wish I was still there, but that's life. That's life. What is this? It's a digital.
It is, let me just tell you what it is. It operates a global research and development company with focus on wireless, visual, and AI and related technologies.
Sebastian, you always come up with the most random stocks, and I love it.
No,
Got
I
a bit of a
think
gap here.
these are no names. Like, not saying no names, but these are opportunities, right? Which people
Exactly.
generally flows under the radar. And year to date, the stock has done pretty well. Almost up 24%. In 1 year, it's up 62%. Just keep in mind this stock does have a very high short interest. It has about 19.83 short interest.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it
Yeah.
is a prime candidate for a short squeeze if the
It's
short
no
sellers
it's no stranger to high volume as well. I've got lots of big spikes here,
are.
almost randomly. Actually, we had a big one on Thursday.
And they do pay dividends. I did not know that. Wow.
Look at the earnings.
All right, let me take a look at it.
Oh wow. You can see on the screen there's very large percentages, 1,100% basically. Surprised to the upside, and 124% on surprised to the upside on revenue. So
Wow.
yeah, they're doing very well. This could be one to add to the watch list. I mean, if it just comes back down to the trend line, obviously not now. I think it's a bit too. It's in no man's land at the moment. There's
Yeah.
nothing there. There's no confluence at all. But if it trades sideways for a bit, maybe comes down to this level of 132, just hypothetically, and then you might have the 50 moving average kind of coming in line with that. with the kind of trend line, so that could be an opportunity there. Um, if it was to kind of plummet, we get some bad news in the market or a bit of volatility. If it was to plummet a bit, then maybe this area as well, the kind of gap fill and the 50-moving average, be a bit lower, be around this kind of 124 level. That would be a really good place to enter by my book. Keep a fairly nice type stop loss, and you're not too far away from success there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a little bit too overextended, and we do have a little bit. There are a couple gaps that you would want to watch for, especially from 124 going up to 126. So
Yeah,
you want
that's what I was
you
drawn
want
on
to
there.
see this curve that, yeah, exactly that one. Yep.
Yeah. I was going to write this one down before I forget, because I might have a little dig into the actual companies itself as like an investment point of view. So thank you very much, Sebastian, once again for bringing up that one. What have we got next? Is it
E-
EVGO?
EVGO, yeah, EVGO.
EVGO.
It's
This
not
one I think has
EVGO,
moved
right?
quite
It's
nicely.
EVGO.
EVGO, yeah. It's
This
a
one,
charging network, isn't it?
yeah, it's owns
Yeah.
fast charging networks in the US.
The
Man,
funny,
I'll be honest with you. Since I have burned my hands with ChargePoint, I'm just being very, very cautious with any charging network nowadays.
yeah, same. Not really much to say there. I mean, one thing I would say for this one is I was very close to getting into a trade for this breakout trend line that I like to do. So I had it basically from here, like that, I think it was roughly. I don't know why it's not still on the actual chart itself, but then obviously breaking through and coming back down to retest it, but it never came back down. And then obviously that's the move I missed. That was an incredible move upwards. It's almost 100%. Actually, it was over 100%. All because it just didn't come back down to retouch it, which is what I like to see. But that's sometimes what trading does. I don't know if you can actually see what I was talking about there. But
No,
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry, I was looking at the short interest for this company. It's almost like 29%.
very high short interest companies that Sebastian is looking at. Yeah,
Yep.
30%. Oh, 30% short interest. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's not really much to say on it. I mean, you've got anything to add for here for EVGO?
No,
Could be
I think
trading a bit
I
of
think
wedge
for me
into it.
personally, I'm not adding this into the watch list. I will be adding IDCC though for trading.
There's a bit of a wedge here. Obviously because that's there's bit of a spike. It's still closed within this wedge, so that to me is still well within the wedge. So because I'll leave this drawn on here, whether we go up or down, and that could be a potential day trade, just for a few kind of few cents here and there. A nice little quick one perhaps, but yeah, that's all I'll be looking at trading wise for this.
Cool. Next up is APA.
APA Corporation.
Yes. This is what do they do? This is an independent energy company, explores for and develops, produces natural gas, crude oil. It has operations in US, Egypt, and North Sea. So
Not a lot going on with the stock price. It's looking a little bit negative. The daily it's below all three moving averages, and this one is the weekly that we're looking at, and it's all again below all three moving averages. So
yeah, and I
we've got
think
a
we covered this stock before because I remember I see some lines drawn on my charts. I think we have
oh,
covered this.
right.
Yeah, we have covered this before.
We've got this line of basically $31. Just move that up a touch. $31 acting as a little bit of resistance here. Obviously support way back here, but acting as a bit of resistance. It's struggling to get through 31. Um,
Correct.
Possible short potential if you go back up to 31, you could then play it back down. Hopefully it breaks the kind of 27.50. But also, there's a lot of news tied to these kind of stocks as well. So that's something else you've got to look towards if you're going to play this kind of natural, energy stocks basically.
Yeah, and I think that trend line. I actually drew the trend line closer to the current one.
Oh, right. So like
Um,
down here.
yeah, exactly. So and that's where the majority of the volume shelf, if you actually look at the channel, that forms a nice channel and most of the trading is happening there. So even when it breaks down, it quick, buyers are stepping in. So this particular trend line is going to be very interesting on how it plays out. If it can break, and what I would really look for a long term break is actually they break and stay above the 200-day moving average here, because they failed to sustain the momentum. and then they dip below the 200-day moving average.
Yeah, but especially on the weekly as well, you want it to be above the kind of 200 moving average. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
yeah, APA, awesome.
Next is INSG.
INSG Corporation.
So
What's
they
that?
are into design and development of cloud managed wireless wide area network and intelligent edge solutions for businesses, consumers, and government worldwide. They basically provide 5G, 4G broadband solutions.
So I'm just having a look at the chart here. This is the weekly chart. A good tip is to kind of go from the bigger time frames to the smaller time frames, generally. Um, so I'll draw that and then dive into the 1 day, zoom in so obviously people can see. I think a bit of no man's land at the moment, but if you can get above that kind of 1310 level, stay above it, maybe come back down for a retest because it does tend to kind of pull back a little bit. Just looking at the chart here, so if it does kind of pull back to 1310, that could be a nice little trade. But I don't expect that to happen maybe till about here. Setting higher lows would be the best thing
Mhm.
as well for this particular stock. Anyway, I'm kind
So,
of rambling for this one.
so in this scenario, what you are looking for is a rejection at that 1310, right?
Yeah, a rejection and then a play back down to kind of the trend line ish, maybe slightly higher, just to set that higher low. So at the
Hmm.
moment, we've only got one kind of major higher low.
Right.
I suppose you could probably count that. So a higher low here, a higher low here, but I would like another one, roughly around this area, and
Okay.
then go in for another challenge at this kind of resistance, and then perhaps break out from there. And then we're looking at you have to go back on the chart to find a decent resistance point, which we won't do now, but just for people watching, that's what I would do
All right.
personally. Breakout trade.
Next up is HIMS.
HIMS, the revenue machines, as I always call them,
Crazy, right?
they are doing really well as a company and fundamentally, but the stock price is not quite going on nicely. There's a few things I can talk to on this chart if you would allow. Okay, is that all right?
Please do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
awesome. So we've got the long-term trend line, which goes back to, way of November last year. You can see that at the bottom left corner, but we'll just zoom in obviously so people can see. We've got the gap fill, which took place very recently. The gap was created on the 17th of May and filled on 8th of August, so only just recently. But it's still kind of playing
There's still
around
some gap
this
left,
level.
actually. There's just very small gap left.
Oh
Maybe.
well, okay.
Yeah, yeah. That's okay. It's like few cents, so don't worry about it.
So you would say that's not filled? Is that what you're saying?
It's I would call it a fill. I mean that gap is like 67 to 69. Yeah, it's not worth talking about it.
All right. So this one, it's at the bottom of these kind of, it's in this kind of range here of this 1470 and 1727 ish. So, and what I did do is go down to the hourly chart, and this is where it looks kind of juicy. This is obviously where it's been trading in the last couple of weeks or so. We had really good earnings to the point where they're actually pretty good for the company looking forward, and there's just nothing happened. It's just kind of a bit flaccid. So I'm kind of still expecting the move, and we've got what I'm looking for, but in a bit more of an unexciting way, if that makes sense. So we've got all of these touches on the trend line coming down. We've broken through it. We've come back down and we've retested it, but in the most flat way possible. So
Mhm.
I'm kind of looking for a bit of a good move, a good day basically, even if a good couple of hours, just to get out of this zone, out of all this volume. So maybe somewhere up about above 16, let's say. So if we can get above 16 and make a move to kind of 720, that's when the stock will really start getting momentum. People start looking at it again, and perhaps kind of um, trading it. Perhaps is there a short interest on this one? Is there something you can pull up?
Yeah, I can pull up 1 second.
Yeah. But yeah, I like him, and I'm currently in the trade, so we'll see how that goes. Obviously, I've got a stop loss somewhere around 1350, I think it is.
9.23.
So 9.23, so it's not too bad. Yeah,
No.
not too bad. Anyway, yeah, that's my thoughts on hymns. I could go on for a couple of hours talking about hymns, but yeah,
I think it's also a good options play if you want to add it to your portfolio for a long term. So I'll definitely be aiming for, probably doing a weekly options on these ones, like you sell puts on it on a weekly standpoint. Or if you want to go out further out on the expiration, maybe 26 or 30 days out, 30 delta would be ideal on this one as well. So, yeah. Next up is Palo Alto, PANW,
Earnings tomorrow.
which is tomorrow. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So let me also pull up the earnings for a second so I know exactly what we're talking about. So from a earnings standpoint, they are generally in line. They generally are able to beat. They have missed one or two times. So expected EPS is $1.41, and expected revenue is about $2.16 billion. So let's look at the chart. I think they are pretty close to their all-time high, right? How much down they are? So from
Look at the menu.
they
Monthly chart.
are about what 10% down. So what is their? Let me also look at their implied move for a second. So the stock generally moves around 10% plus minus.
So it could be challenging for all-time highs again.
Correct. So 10% would be what, $33. So yeah, it would come very close to the well, still be short by a couple, $10 or so. So that's what you are looking, upside or downside on this earnings.
It's just drawing this trend line, just playing with the lines a bit. I had this drawn already, but I'll get rid of that from a previous, I'm guessing a previous live stream of some sort. But we've got this kind of trend line drawn from beginning of February to kind of where we are now. Actually, I mean, it's a shame earnings is just around the corner because this would be a nice kind of entry point in the next couple of days, just because you've got the two moving averages coming up to
Hmm.
the trend line, and obviously you've got the confluence of the trend line as well. So it's 3 points of confluence.
And the fourth one is the gap fill.
But yeah, yeah, even better. Well, that's there, isn't it? Yeah, so that'd be interesting to see if that could happen. I mean, you could get in it now, but that's very very risky. And we've spoken about playing earnings in the past. It's a binary event that could go either way, of course, and we could see it actually earnings a couple of months ago, albeit green on the bottom there on the shield. It went down massively,
Yeah.
and obviously Nancy Pelosi started buying it, so obviously it went back up again. But yeah, awesome. I'll be
So
keeping this one, a keen eye on this one, to see what happens tomorrow. So
yeah. All right. Next is Netflix.
Netflix, lovely.
This is like one of those stocks that nobody talks about. Like Meta, people still talk about. Netflix, everybody's like they don't focus on it, but this stock just keeps hammering, keeps going up.
It does. I mean, if you look there in the last,
It's coming close to its all-time high almost. Like all-time high was what, $701 or 799. It's like 674.
yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean, it's getting above this level here of eight. These are the lines that have already been on my screen, by the way. I haven't actually just drawn these, but I've got 665 drawn. It looks like it's kind of breaking through that and maybe holding it and maybe move up, make a move higher. But yeah, I mean, it's tricky to say where it's going to go. It's one of those where it's almost made its move already. Would you agree
Yeah.
with that? Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
think
great if you're holding it. Really good.
exactly. I think if you are already in the trade, then great. But I think the entry point is not the ideal setup for you to make a lot out of this one because we could see a rejection at 697, which was its previous high. So so then there are two areas of resistance. One is the 697, which is the recent high, and one is the all-time high of 799, which is almost $701. So those are the two main resistance point. Unless it breaks, unless we have some major catalyst coming in. So earnings is already passed, so I don't know if there's any other catalyst coming in for Netflix. Generally, as it gets warmer, I'm sorry, it gets colder, people tend to stay home, so they probably will watch more. So maybe subscription will go up and stuff like that.
Mm.
But um,
I still think it remains one of the best streaming platforms, if not the best.
yeah, I mean they are the dominant force, but I don't see the upside potential. I mean, from I'm not talking about investing standpoint. I'm talking about from a trading standpoint. How much you're going to make from 674 to 701.
Yeah, 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 true. Not much.
Okay, next up another Max 7 Apple. We haven't talked Apple in like forever.
I think Apple just broke a trend line.
But they did.
Yeah,
Oh
look,
wow. Oh wow.
well, a trendish line. But yeah, it's soaring to. It's actually 10 days in a row. I think it's been green, which is a record for Apple.
Whew, wow.
Which you can see obviously on the screen now. Obviously, it's white, but yeah, 10 in a row. That's absolutely incredible. I mean, well done if you got in here at 199. Ironically, I had a line drawn there and didn't buy. But that's the way it goes. You know, you can't catch all of the moves. You can't look at all the charts unless you've got unlimited time, of course, which we don't. We have jobs, so yeah, it's tricky to pick up these ones. But imagine if you bought there, at least just from a trading point of view. Of course, if you're investing, then you're probably way up from the last 4 or 5 years just alone. But let alone the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
of
I think
course.
with the Apple event coming in, maybe we might see a little bit more push to the upside, especially with the whole AI super cycle of upgrading your phones.
Mm.
Uh, Personally, I'm not going to upgrade the phone regardless of AI feature or not. But again, a lot of analysts are talking about upgrading the super cycle for iPhone coming in. But it might not happen in the next 1 or 2 quarters. It might be the whole 2025, 2026 cycle. So you are still few quarters away from that massive super cycle that a lot of analysts are expecting. Um,
We've got a comment from Shahin saying Buffett gap erased,
yeah,
incredible
exactly.
run. Yeah, exactly
Yeah.
right. I mean, this was obviously partly the kind of that Monday event, not my event, but that Monday prize action,
The
but
Black
also
Monday.
yeah, that also happened on the same weekend that Buffett announced that he sold basically like 48% of what it was of his stake, which is a lot of money, isn't it? He's held that for years.
Yeah, but he's still that is still his biggest holding. It's I mean,
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think you also have to understand from these big institution standpoint, they have risk management strategies in place. It's not like Buffett just wakes up today and I feel like selling Apple, he sells Apple. They have strategies in place, so they probably are trimming their position, as things proceed. Interestingly, on Apple, not to be a Debbie Downer here, but there is a gap which is around the 175 to 180.
Okay, come on. That's all the way down
No,
here.
the reason I'm calling that out is that you should keep that gap in mind, not because it's going to happen tomorrow or next week, but whenever that pullback happens from the market, that is where if you have missed Apple on the upside, this is a good potential to get back in whenever that happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think just put a percentage to that as well. From here, as an example, that is actually 23% down, which
Exactly.
is, it is possible, of course, with all these things
With
going on in the
individual
world at
stock,
the
it's
moment. But
100% possible,
yeah,
and you'll be in a bear territory on Apple from there.
oh, 100%. Yeah, definitely.
All right, next up, another one, Celsius.
Celsius, yeah, this is the one that I just can't catch a bit at the moment, but I do like the weekly chart. This is obviously the daily chart firing up now. Not too sure what these circles are doing here. Maybe I can see that on the weekly chart in a minute. But the daily chart just looks it's continuously being beaten down. This stock. I mean, it is a drink at the end of the day. But we've got all of the support here that has been created towards the end of last year and the beginning of parts of this year, and it just blasted straight through that in a negative fashion. We just want to get back up to there, maybe retest it, but it's just not happening on the daily. But again, if you switch to the one weekly, so I've taken over here, Kay. On the weekly chart, we've got a nice bounce off the 200 moving average. So we just wanted to hold that really, essentially. I mean, one of my friends on X, Fibonacci Trading, he brought this up on Monday and it caught my eye, specifically the weekly chart. And it's a fairly lowish risk trade if you have a fairly tight stop loss around this area of 33, 34. You're not losing out on too many percentages, especially if it's a low part of your portfolio. So that's always something to consider. I'm going to run out of breath if I keep talking, so I'll let you have a little, few words
No,
on Celsius.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think two things I'll watch. One is if it can break the 20-day moving average and stay above that. That's a
Mm.
resistance for a while now for this company. Second, if they have filled the gap, which was this the trading for the last 3, 4, 7 days. They have filled that gap, which has been there. So that's a good sign that a lot of buyers stepped in to fill that gap. Next is you want to watch they stay above the 20-day moving average. And then probably you can play that 20 to 50-day moving average trend. And that where I would like to enter and if I'm doing a swing trading on the Celsius.
Yeah, no, good price. I like it. One to
Next,
add to the watch list.
yeah, next up is PZZA. It's like a pizza.
And then we've got one
Oh, it's
more after this, haven't we?
Papa John's. That's why.
Papa John's. That does make sense. Yeah. I don't mind this actually. From a purely technical point of view, I don't know what's going on with the company. Of course, I know they sell pizzas, and pizza's obviously a very high margin business generally. But yeah, it's above two moving averages. It's not the biggest moving stock in the world in terms of percentage wise, which is good. Gives you a little bit more control around the trades. But I like the higher lows that have been set in recent trading. But this recent push up above the 50 moving average, especially, is really catching my eye here. I don't know about UK.
So I think the requester is selling puts. So I'm assuming you're selling puts here, or you're doing wheel strategy. I guess. I think the resistance would be like what around 49.62. That'd be a 48.84, right? That would be it rejected three times from there, two or three.
Uh, where are we talking? This one, what
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
this
that
area?
one. Yep,
Okay,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of
So
area, yeah.
so if you are selling puts on this one, then it would we could aim at like a 44, 45. I don't know what the premiums are, but well, the premiums are pretty. It's high. It's for a monthly. It's 1.85 at the money. I'm long
Wow.
pizza share to 60 plus. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So definitely you can play the short swings on selling puts here, and then
I
okay.
mean, look,
Yeah.
inverse head and shoulders there as well. And we've come back and retested the neckline. So the neckline is here. I'm going to try and draw this out as clearly as possible for people. Um, Obviously, we know roughly what we're doing. That's the neckline. So and I'll make this a different color as well so you can see what's going on. So you've got the head and shoulders, obviously the shoulder one, head, shoulder two. And this is the neckline. So this is the most common point of contact. And we've basically come up above that and retested that neckline. And that's really a good sign. Again, alongside the 50 moving average as well. So I like actually what who was it selling puts is kind of brought up here because it's a nice technical play, not just a potentially a fundamental play. Because obviously the last few earnings reports has been pretty green, from what I can see at least down here. A few more, I think, a bit more digging to do behind this, but there's a lot of potential here with this chart, especially because it's been so sold off in the last year or so.
Yeah. And on the option side as well, I think since it's a monthly options, you only have a monthly option to sell. I think you can probably target that range of what is that 44.77 to 48.90. I think as a stock, barcodes in that range, this could be a good wheel strategy for the monthly.
Yeah, it has been. If you look at the weekly as well, look at that. It's just really been sold off. So yeah, we'll see what happens with pizza.
All right. So
Papa
we have two
John's.
two more requests. We have Microsoft, another, and then we'll go with Chipotle, Mexican
Awesome.
grill.
So this one I had. This is a weekly chart. Sorry, let's just bring up the daily chart. I had this a few weeks ago, I think, on here, and I basically thought it might bounce off the 200 average, come back up, and then reject.
Yeah.
Obviously, none of that has happened. So that's sometimes what trading does to you. Um, but what we've done is retrace back up to this kind of trend line. Looks like we're kind of breaking through it slightly. Obviously, it's not the most perfect trend line because obviously there's not that many touches. But yeah, I'll let you talk to this one. I've done plenty of talking.
I think for this one, if you want to trade, I would look at the trade, if you want to enter at this point, I would look at 421 all the way driving to 434 if you're day trading this one, because the 50-day moving average is a resistance and it got rejected last time back in July. So that will remain as a resistance until we see a clear break on that. So you could still play from here to the next rejection point, and if it breaks, great, you can have a runner, on that, leave a runner and basically take some profit at that 50-day moving average. um, Also, I think there's a very good amount of volume shelf coming at the 200-day moving average for Microsoft. I mean, generally from Max 7, I'm a lot more confident. I take a little bit more risk as opposed to some of the other companies,
Yeah.
because these are solid companies. Even if your trade goes against, again, you need to put a stop loss to make sure you get out of the trade so you don't see those Black Monday drops. But overall, I think this is I'm pretty comfortable with having an entry point here and running it up to the 50-day moving average, and then probably leaving a runner if it can break. If not, then again you can close it out, but having a very tight stop loss at the 200-day moving average, which is 406.
I think I really like your point on letting like a win and run. I had a tweet on that the other day, or post, whatever you call it, where you're only going to build your account, especially if you're like a smaller trader. You're only going to build your account if you let your winners run, and I think that's a really important point that you touched on there, Kay. So obviously playing it from this area, so basically this line, and if it gets back up to the 50, that's your initial target. That's great, but you don't really want to sell the whole position there because there's still upside to go. You can see that on Microsoft. It's shown that it's done that in the past. So maybe take a third, or even 50%, or even two-thirds, depending on what your kind of risk allocations like, what you want to do. But just I think it's always important to leave a runner going. Yeah. So good point there, Kay.
Yeah, and keep in mind, next week Nvidia will report earnings. So if they report good earnings, and I'm assuming they will report good earnings, it will pull QQQ up,
Yeah.
and with that, Microsoft will also be pulling the market up. It's just going to be what the news basically is going to be around how these big companies are spending on AI, and that will be reflected in Nvidia's earnings, which eventually will pull up all these stocks as well, because hey, everybody's spending on capex, so they want to be competitive.
Yeah.
So you can definitely, this looks like a good entry point, but make sure you have your stop losses pretty tied up. Okay, last one
Yeah.
is
And I
CMG.
think a
Go ahead,
stop
sorry.
loss, a stop loss below the 200 moving average would be where I look initially. Yeah. CMG, last one of the day.
Yes.
Who brought this one up?
It is
Angel. There you go.
yes.
Looks
Um,
weak. It does look weak. Yeah, I agree.
Also, the news did not help, right? The
Oh,
Chipotle,
yeah,
the CMG CEO jumped on Starbucks.
did.
So
Starbucks went up 20%.
I mean, listen, I don't mind. I have leap calls on Nike. I have leap calls in Starbucks. I'm enjoying the show, but I also am invested in CMG, so I'm not very happy about that.
No, I mean, you can see on the weekly, if you zoom out, a bit more perspective behind it, I suppose. Um, the last kind of 4 weeks kind of been within a range, I guess, but it's nice to see this 50 million average kind of holding as well, even despite the news. So this could be an area of support for Chipotle. So that's the most English way of saying it, wasn't it? Chipotle. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't trade a stock like this. Would you trade a stock like this, or are you more like a kind of
No, no, I
options?
actually trade CMG pretty much weekly.
Oh wow, okay, yeah,
I think it is going through the typical phase of whenever there is a stock split that happens.
yeah,
It takes a while before the stock prices get a little bit more stabilized. It happened with Nvidia. It happened with the previous stock splits of Amazon, Apple. So if you trade around that time, you can have the good run up before the stock split happens, and then after the stock split actually ends up happening, things takes a little bit while before it stabilizes.
yeah. I think your point there, Angel. I tried to swing it long, got caught. I'd like to hold it for an investment. I think the points we just made around the kind of weekly moving average, if you are looking to turn it into an investment, I suppose, um, that's always important to kind of zoom out and take a bigger perspective if you are kind of looking from more of an investment standpoint rather than a trading standpoint. But of trading standpoint in the near term, I mean, as you mentioned in your initial comment, yeah, it does look a bit weak just because it's below the 200 moving average, which is this red line coming through. But you know that already because you've already mentioned it. But yeah, it's a tricky one. But for long term, not too bad in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of the most stable restaurants, stocks out there. Pretty affordable. I think long term you won't be wrong on Chipotle. But yeah, I mean, I think let the stock price stabilize after the split. I think that's generally, how I look at it.
Lovely. That's it for the charts this week then. Lots to go through. I think we went through about 10, 15 tickers there. So thank you very much for people who kind of stuck them in the chat to the right side. Obviously, we will be back next Sunday. I believe you have a couple of weeks off in September. Is that right, Kay?
Yes, a couple weeks, but yeah, we'll be on next week and the following week as well, and then yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So thank you again once for the charts. Obviously, we do have an announcement to make. I forgot to make it at the beginning because I basically forgot. We will be going live on Wednesdays as well at the end of September, um, solely on YouTube though. So just be on YouTube Wednesday around the kind of closing bell sort of time. So I know obviously people are busy. But of course, you can catch the post recording. You can still comment on the post recording, and obviously related to that, you can obviously attach it to our X profiles and have a chat that way as well. So we'll kind of work it out and see where it goes from there. Yeah, that's kind of it from me. I think obviously trade safely Wednesday to Friday. It's going to be very volatile from Wednesday to Friday. So just be careful out there, guys. Kay, what would you like to wrap up?
No, first of all, I think thank you everybody for who participated. It's always fun for us to look at new tickers because we are always in our own little watch list. So always good to get new ideas. Secondly, I think adding a Wednesday session kind of helps us also to kind of course correct in the
Yep.
middle of the week. So you can definitely check out our clips on the channel, on X. We'll post as well. And all the everybody, Sebastian, enjoy your vacation, man. We'll be there for next week and couple weeks, and then I'll be off for a couple weeks. But yeah, I think after September we'll probably have more sessions on Sundays and Wednesdays, both on X and YouTube. So yeah, so trade safely, enjoy the trading, and be safe. Take care.
Yeah, I think just one last thing. Angel, it is on YouTube as well. We are currently live on YouTube. Links obviously somewhere, so you can find us on the Trading Triangle on YouTube. But yeah, with that, thank you very much. We'll see you next week. Take care. Stay safe.
Take care.